Amy, thank you for being with us. I just finished watching the docuseries, and of course I have so many questions for you. But first, what made you want to speak out? Was there anything you wanted to get across about your experience? Because I would imagine it's not easy for you to bring all this back up in your head.
The only reason I really did, this interview with Netflix is because it had integrity. It was explained to me that they were gonna really do the research and tell the real story.
A hotel with a notorious past is the site of another bizarre case.
Elisa Lam from Vancouver, Canada, is missing.
The big unanswered question is, where is she?
I mean, there have been so many pieces on this over time, and I have not really watched any of them just because they're not based or they're not talking to anybody that worked at the hotel. I mean, these are all theories. And so to me, the way it was explained is that they were actually going to do their homework and tell the story, and I believed them, and that's why I did it.
You're great in it, by the way. You really help make the narrative easy to understand, and you're so relatable. What was the biggest misconception, or maybe there was more than one, that you did hope this would get across that has been misconstrued over the years?
The mystery. People became obsessed, quickly after, Elisa Lam passed away, people became obsessed with, what happened to her, even after it was, released of, how it was determined how she died. And it was all very public. We know that. It was all very public, but people just couldn't seem to accept the outcome, and to me, I feel the piece puts it all together, and it considers all the circumstances. They're talking to all these different groups, and I think the outcome is the truth.
One thing I wondered from you was, I think at some point you say something like 80 deaths happened while you were there.
Yeah, and that's another thing I've been talking a lot about actually this morning. When I first started working there were, a lot of long-term tenants. I mean, let's just say, maybe over 80, and there were a lot of older people. And, these deaths weren't murders. I mean, these were, people that just passed away naturally. I mean, of course we had, some, circumstances where people lost their lives, due to suicide and overdoses, but for the most part, I mean, these were older people that, that passed away. Yeah.
The docuseries does get into things like that the Night Stalker had spent some time there. The hotel does have such history to it. Did you ever have any paranormal experiences, any senses there?
Yeah, everybody keeps asking me that, and it's a great question. I do believe in ghosts. I do. I mean, I'm not opposed that they don't, that they exist, but it wasn't my experience at the hotel. I mean, I was running the hotel. We were running a business. The thought of like the ghosts and goblins running around. I mean, that's what I kind of picture with a lot of these, other things that have been out, where it's like you think that they're flying around everywhere, and it just wasn't my experience.
So, given though that there were deaths happening at the hotel, that it wasn't a seedy area, what made you stay working there so long?
I loved my job. I did. I worked with amazing people. I mean, still, I talk to a lot of these people still today. I mean, there was so many employees that have been there 10 to over 30 years. I mean, 35 years. We had a great team, and I learned so much while I was working there. It was my first hotel job. I mean, it was quite an introduction, but I enjoyed it. And in fact, the only reason I left is because the hotel closed.
Well, it seems like in this documentary, we really are, like you said, doing the research, uncovering some things. You at one point say, I've never said this before, but Elisa, she did kind of say some wild things, and she seemed like something was a little off. Had you shared that with the police? Why had you not said it publicly before?
I've never spoken publicly at all about my experience at the hotel, my work. Everything that I shared on, the show, of course, was shared with the police. I mean, there wasn't anything that I, held back or anything like that. I just had never spoken about it.
It's fascinating to watch. You also have to remember, like you said, these are real people. These are real emotions, and you guys all went through so much. What was that time just like for you personally, mentally, emotionally?
It was really hard. I mean, beginning with, it was a loss. I mean, somebody passed away, in a tragic way, the circumstances of, discovering how she died, and, in processing all that was, hard. It was hard on our entire team, and also, again, and you have to remember, I mean, I was the general manager, so, I was responsible for making sure that our employees were getting through the process and all that. I mean, there wasn't anything easy about it.
So that moment when you learned of her disappearance, what goes through your mind?
I didn't, from the beginning, when I learned that Elisa Lam went missing, I didn't have a good feeling about it, but I didn't think that she was going to end up at the hotel. I really thought, since she was traveling alone, maybe there was a possibility that she, maybe met some people, in, that part of town, and, maybe that happened. I just would have never thought, of course, the outcome. I mean, how could you possibly predict something like that?
What about the elevator video? That is a question I still have. People wonder, are there pieces missing from it? Is it edited? Where's this missing minute? What do you say to all that?
It's absolutely unedited. I mean, I handed everything over firsthand. I'm the only one that would have had access to the footage. So, I mean, I did see that in the documentary where they talk about that, and absolutely not. I mean, we were very transparent with the police, and the footage, I don't think anybody could deny is, it's strange, of course. I mean, she's acting very, strange on the video. But as far as like any tampering or, a missing minute, I don't think so.
So is there a minute missing from it?
I mean, I saw that in the documentary where, people are thinking like, has this been tampered with, or, absolutely not. No.
There was also this other hotel guest who was a singer, kind of a metal singer, and he had some really dark themes in his music. And he speaks out in the documentary. What did you think when you heard that people were suspecting him? Were you aware that online people were tracking him down?
I was absolutely shocked, but I felt so sorry for him. I mean, it's so clear, that he was, deeply affected by this, and I think, bullying would apply, and this guy had absolutely nothing to do with it, and he was tormented.
Well, what would you say to people who did do all that digging all those years? Is there anything you wish you could have said to them at the time? I don't know if you spoke out at all to them at the time when people were digging and coming to the hotel and filming and all that.
It was never a mystery for me. I mean, I was obviously extremely involved, with the whole process, from start to finish. I mean, there was never a mystery of, how Elisa Lam, died for me. So I think this is a great opportunity because, you're gonna see, they're gonna walk you through, and all of the other elements are also included. But there's an underlying story and an outcome too with this documentary.
If you can take me back to that moment, and when you find out that her body is in the water tank, it's shocking. What was it like for you when you learned about that?
I mean, equally as shocking. I'll never forget, meeting with the health department. I had the health department in my office, and I explained, what had happened, and they were equally as shocked too. They had never dealt with anything like that before. I mean, it was hard to process. There was, and I was drinking the same water. I mean, we were all drinking the same water.
Can what did the health department tell you to do? What did you have to do after that?
Oh, I mean, we did everything they asked us to do. I mean, they did, a series of testing, and, the water wasn't contaminated, come to find out. And I guess that isn't uncommon based on the circumstances. There were a lot of steps. We had to close the hotel altogether, and relocate everybody that was there. I mean, there was a lot involved.
What do you hope people take away from the series, if anything? What do you want them to walk away with?
I just hope their questions are answered, and at the end of the day, I hope there's healing for everybody, I mean, at the end of the day, somebody passed away here, and, I think that it will answer a lot of questions.